This video is on adding integers. So we're going to start with some vocab. So integers are all whole numbers and their opposites. Now we want to remember that whole numbers are numbers like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. They don't include decimals and they don't include fractions, so neither do integers. Also remember that opposite numbers are positive and negative numbers with the same absolute value. So like 5 and -5 are opposite numbers, 7 and -7 are also examples of opposite numbers. And lastly, let's remember that absolute value is how far a number is from 0. So 7 is 7 places away from 0, just like -7 is also 7 places away from 0. So both of them would have an absolute value of 7. Alright, so let's go ahead and try adding these integers. So we got 6 and we got -4. The easiest way to think about this is thinking about two armies. A positive army, in this case, a positive army of 6, and a negative army, in this case, 4. Now the two armies meet, and they're going to equally destroy their opponent. So we got one positive and one negative going away. Then another positive, another negative. Another positive, negative, until we are left with the positive army winning the battle. And they're going to win it by 2. Okay? And so in this case, our answer is positive 2. Now it doesn't matter if I do 6 plus -4 or -4 plus 6. Either way, the answer is 2. Remember, that is the commutative property of addition. When you're adding, it doesn't matter if you change the order of the add-ins, you'll always get the same sum. Alright, so let's try another example. This time we have a positive army of 3 and a negative army of 8. Pretty big army. Very clear who's going to win here, but let's do it out to see how much they're going to win by. So the negative army wins by 5. So that means our answer is -5. Okay, and again, it doesn't matter if I say 3 plus -8 is -5, or -8 plus 3, also -5, because of the commutative property of addition. Alright, in this example, we have a negative army of 2, and then we have another negative army of 4. Now, these two armies are on the same team. There's no reason they're going to fight each other. They're going to combine together and form an even larger negative army of 6. Just like when you add two positives, like 2 plus 3, you get 5, a bigger positive. Same thing for negatives. I have -2 and I have -4, so altogether I have -6. Alright, so let's go over another way to solve these problems, because drawing out the stick figures is all well and good when the numbers are small like this. When they get larger, this is going to turn into quite a pain to have to do all this. So we're going to go over 2 questions to ask yourself to solve these problems. Question number 1 is, which number has a larger absolute value? So of 6 and -4, which has a larger absolute value? 6. Its absolute value is 6 compared to -4, which is just 4. So that means the positive number is larger, so my answer is going to be positive. It's going to have the bigger army. Second question you ask yourself, well, how much bigger is that army? The positive army, 6, is 2 bigger than the negative army of 4. So my answer is positive 2. Alright, so let's try this with some larger numbers. Now we have 56 and -73. I definitely would not want to draw out stick figures for this one. So I'm going to ask myself the questions. Question 1, which number has a larger absolute value? In this case, the negative number is bigger. So that means that army is going to win, so my answer is going to be negative. And the second question, how much bigger is it? Well, how much bigger is 73 than 56? If I don't feel like working that out in my head, I can just go ahead and subtract them. 73 minus 56, do out my math, and I find out that 73 is 17 bigger than 56. Now remember question 1, because my answer is -17, because remember, the negative army was bigger. That is probably the most common mistake people make, is that they forget the negative because they get wrapped up in the subtraction and they forget to put it on there. One helpful hint is if you have an answer blank, or you can just write an equal sign, go ahead and write the negative as soon as you know the answer is going to be negative. Then figure out what that number is going to be so you don't forget the negative later down the line. Alright, so go ahead and try this one on your own. Pause it, and then when you come back and unpause it, I'll go ahead and have the answer for you. Alright, so the answer to this one is -8. So remember, ask yourself those two questions. Which one's bigger, the negative? How much bigger is it? 8, so the answer is -8. Let's try another one. Go ahead and pause it. Alright, the answer is -40. Hopefully you didn't get tricked because they're both negative, so they're on the same army. They're going to combine to one big negative army. Alright, go ahead and pause it. And the answer is 32. Next problem. Go ahead and pause it. And the answer is, hopefully you didn't get tricked, -99. This is a good example of a property I'd like to go over. This is the identity property of addition. That property says whenever you add 0 to a number, that number is not going to change. Now I know that's fairly obvious, and everyone realizes that if you add nothing to a number, it's obviously not going to change, but it's important that you know that that is the identity property of addition. Alright, go ahead and pause it. And the answer to this one is -93. Go ahead and pause it. And the answer to this one is 67. Go ahead and pause it. And the answer to this one is 0. So this is another example of a property. This is an example of the inverse property of addition. So this should be a new property to you. And what this property says is that whenever you add opposite numbers, so remember opposite numbers are the same number, only positive and negative, equal distance from 0. Together, they're always going to sum up to 0, which makes sense if you think about our army example. If you have two equal armies, well, you're going to have one person matched up with each person on the positive side, matched up with each person on the negative side. No one has an advantage. They're going to end up with nobody left. So anytime you add opposite numbers, you always get 0, and that is the inverse property of addition. Alright, so let's talk about what you do when you have multiple add-ins like this. There's many strategies you can do, and I honestly do not care which way you do it as long as you're getting the correct answer. If you would like to go from left to right, solving it out that way, that is fine. One way I like to do it is grouping together all the positive add-ins and then grouping together all the negative add-ins and then adding those two. So for this one, I would add up the 5 and the 2 and get 7. Then I would add up the -9 and the -13 to get my -22. And now I would go ahead and add up the 7 and the -22 to get my -15. Now you can do it however you like, up to you. Go ahead and pause and try this one on your own. Alright, so the answer to this one is -30. If you had done it the way I was telling you in the last slide, you would have added up the -22 and the -14 to get -36. And so -36 is 30 bigger than 6, so that's why it's -30. If you did a different route, that's fine, as long as you got the answer of -30. Go ahead and pause and try this one on your own. And the answer to this one is -28. So this is our last problem, the word problem. I'm not going to give you the answer to this. Go ahead and work it out at the end of your notes, and we'll talk about it in class. It is Jean bought 10 pounds of ground beef. What was the price per pound if Jean paid $19.60?